Good morning students. Today we will start with 18FT 504 Quality Assurance in Garment Production. We are at Unit 4 Quality Assurance in Apparel Production. Lesson 1 talks about quality assurance in spreading to finishing. This is a completely new unit we are going to start. And students will see here that different processes which are involved in making the garment. Okay. So what are the different areas we should look into from the quality assurance point of view? And those areas are to be looked into technically to understand that what are the precautions we need to take to produce a good quality garment. Now see students, the quality assurance when you are talking, we will talk about overall garment production, and when we are going into spreading to the finishing operations at each stages, we will talk about the quality control, how a particular quality controller will do the quality control in a very practical way. Let us see students how this spreading to finishing the quality assurance can be done. Now when we talk about the spreading operations, as you all know that this is one of the major area depending upon that what type of garment you are producing, the fabric is selected and spreading is done on a machine. And there are various parameters which needs to be checked in this operation. Let us see what are those operations, and in the machine you can see that a person is laying or getting the fabric length in the machine, and the points which needs to be checked here is that adjustment of the fabric width. So variation in the fabric width is the first parameter which is very vital, needs to be checked by a quality control supervisor or the different areas of operations which are looked into by the spreading team. So they must look into this particular fabric width. Okay. Because you see that if fabric width is not properly controlled, so there will be variation in the spreading operations, and ultimately it has effect in the further operations in cutting and sewing. So what is the next part what we need to look into is that ply alignment. Okay. Now in spreading, that different layers of fabric are laid down on the tables. So those are called the plies. Now you can see the picture students that there are different layers are there, and there are directions. One is the face up, face down kind of approach, another is the nap directions. Okay. So by which the spreading can be done. So ply alignment should be perfect. Okay. There are certain ways by which it can be done. So this is one of the very important points also, how the ply alignment is done in the spreading operations. And if again this ply alignment is not done properly, okay, then the cutting operations will be affected. Okay, we will do lot of wastage of the fabric, which is not desirable from the production point of view. Let us see students what is the next parameter important for this spreading operation. Tension adjustments. So tension adjustment is very vital in the machines also, at which speed actually this laying operation is getting done in the spreading of the fabric. Next in the spreading operation is the direction of spread, very important here. That I was talking about the laying of the garment. So what are the different ways this spreading can be done. So there are different modes of operations are there in this spreading. So like example is the face to face and nap either way. Then there are ways by which face one way and nap in the other way. So that type of situations also can come. Then face to face and nap one way and face to face and nap either way. So those are the schematic diagrams which have been shown in these particular slides. So direction of the spread when we are talking, so we talk about the face and the nap side, and proper spreading should be there. Okay. So direction of the spread also plays an important role in the spreading efficiency or the next operation when the cutting will be done. So it is an important parameter for quality control in spreading. Let us see, students, what next in the spreading operations. Static electricity is very important, because when the fabric lays are there, especially in case of synthetic or their blends, okay, if there is a mixture of cotton and synthetic or 100% synthetic product, so there that in a natural way this static electricity can generate, and if that generates in the plies, then there will be little bit of displacement will be there, different lays and all these things. So the cutting efficiency will not be correct into that, and ultimately there will be loss of fabric, or there will be fabric wastage, such kind of things may happen. So that is the way the accuracy of cutting will be disturbed if there is the static electricity generation is there. So we have to control that part, and the quality control inspector must inspect that particular parameter. Next comes, students, that spreading operations, the parameter which is important and which is very important at this stage, because at this stage only we can eliminate the fabric fault. This is the last step by which the fabric faults can be eliminated, and this can be done after this fabric inspection. Fabric inspection, already faults and all the blemishes which are there, that are omitted. Now remaining, if anything is left out, those can be eliminated in this spreading operation. So elimination of the fabric faults are very important operations. That's why, students, in this stage the spreading operations, because the spreader which is doing this operation in the cutting department, so he can see that particular faults at a very close distance, and if there is a real fault, so that is marked, so that particular part is getting omitted from this particular spreading operations. So that's why elimination of the fabric faults, which is very important to maintain good quality, because otherwise if it mixes or if it comes to the cutting department and ultimately it goes to the sewing, so we will get the faults or the fabric defects in the garment. So that is the reason the elimination of the fabric fault is very important at the spreading stage. Let us see, students, that the spreading, we have seen that lot of parameters we need to really look into. Now, one of the important parameters in spreading also is the shade sorting. Now, students, we may ask, what is the point of doing shade sorting at this stage? You see, students, that if you see this figure, that in a particular group of color there are little bit of variations, okay, like green, if you take, there are gradation of different colors are there in different ways. Violet there are, okay. So in this fashion, if there is little bit of variation is there in the shade, and those are coming into these spreading operations, okay, fabric lays one after other when you are giving. So similar group of color or similarly sorted colors must be there in that fabric lay. Otherwise, if it is mixed together, then there will be variation when cutting operation will be done and assembly will be done in the case of sewing. So there will be variation in different parts of the garment, because we have to join with some seams and all these in the garmenting stage. So the fabric panels which are there, and which is coming out from the spreading, actually those must be of equal shade. So difference of shade in that particular garment then will not be accepted. So one of the ways of controlling such kind of variation of the shade is by sorting of the shades at the time of spreading. So that's why shade sorting plays an important role in spreading operation. Student, let us see, after spreading there is another important operations, which is that the pattern making. And here we have to really a little bit of cautious about the paper what we are using. The pattern paper must be of very good quality. So different patterns are getting generated there if it is a manual pattern. And then in pattern making, that paper thickness, okay, that should be not too thin or not too thick. Okay, this particular part has to be taken care of. So proper dimensions of the paper, proper thickness of the paper, that must be looked into. Now in pattern making also, that paper what is to be selected, it must be easily cuttable by paper scissors. Okay, it should not be too thick. That's why the proper thickness of the paper is playing an important role in this pattern making. And quality of those papers are very important, because this ultimately will tell that how cutting operation will go, okay, based on these patterns. Now after this pattern making operations and different parameters what we are seeing now, we have to see that edges of the pattern paper, okay, whether there is a tendency to abrade. So edges of the pattern papers are also very important while we are doing the pattern making. This is particularly true for computerized system or any kind of manual system. The paper where you are taking the printout or where you are doing this kind of pattern making, so edges of the pattern paper very important role it plays. So that we have to see that that tendency of abrasion, okay, abrasion tendency should not be there at the edges. Now in pattern making, the accuracy is very important part. Now students, this accuracy, when you are talking, I am talking about the manual part of it. So manual pattern making process. Now if we use the computerized pattern making process, this should be accurate, okay, 99% at least accuracy will be there into that. Now students, you may ask what we will gain out of it. Now if you see that particular pattern making area, that based on this pattern making only, we will really select the fabric for cutting, okay, and different areas of cutting will be there. And if it is accurately done pattern making, so wastage of the fabric will be less. And this is actually correctly achieved and attained by using the computerized system of pattern making. Manual system, yes, still some error may be there, but computerized system you can really control this part, that accuracy. Now in pattern making, there is another important part is the marks, how you are marking this one, especially in the manual pattern making process. So marking is very important here. And then comes in pattern making that particular area, that is it must be receptive to color, quality and clarity. Three things are very important here in pattern making. So pattern making, that's why very important when you are doing the manual pattern making. These are all very much applied to that. In computerized pattern making, all these things are controlled, okay. Some programming is there and it can be controlled. Now this pattern making process, when you are talking, we have to always be careful that the lines what you are making, lines must be well defined lines. Hazy lines should not be there. So there is cut problem will be there, then to select that particular area of pattern. So that's why lines should be well defined in pattern making. And all these operations, when it is perfectly done, then we come into the next operation, that is called cutting operations. Okay, and different points which needs to be seen in cutting operations are like frayed edges, okay, then fuzzy, ragged, or some serrated edges. So these are the different areas of quality control in the cutting operation. Now in the figure, students, you can see that a person is doing that pattern, and as per the pattern he is cutting the fabric, okay, by some cutting machine. So with that he will prepare the particular kind of accuracy, okay. So if pattern making is correct, then this cutting also will be correct into this operation. So we have to see that there should not be any frayed edges, fuzzy, ragged or serrated edges should not be there in this operation. We have to also see that ply to ply fusion, okay. So ply to ply fusion should not be there. If sticking and all this happens between these two ply, then cutting operation will be affected, and accuracy again will be really in trouble for that. And if accuracy is in danger, then really we will lose fabrics, okay. Fabric should be replaced, okay. A lot of time waste will be there, accuracy if it is not correct. So fabric wastage will be the end result of it. So that's why ply to ply fusion, because it is not only one ply. The person who is doing this cutting, he is doing with number of plies together. So ply to ply fusion plays an important role to it. Now in cutting, there is also single edge fusion, okay, it may also happen. So that also we must be careful, single edge fusion. In cutting there are also that some sort of precautions needs to be taken when you are talking, is the pattern precision. So as per the precision, the cutting has to be done. Pattern precision, that's why plays an important role to it. Then there are various other aspects like the notches. Sometimes notches are required as shown in the figure. So V patterns and all these things. So those notches are to be controlled, and also there is another particular method that is called the drill. Sometimes you have to drill the clothing, okay, some particular kind of material which can be drilled, that is the fabric. So such operations actually are done in the cutting, and we have to be very carefully control when we are talking about the quality control in the cutting operation. So these are the different areas, okay, of concern, which from the quality control point of view must be taken into account if you really want to produce a good quality garment, okay, and without losing productivity. So those are the important areas, that is the quality assurance of spreading, then pattern making and the cutting operation. Now next operation, students, is the bundling operations. Can you tell students what do you mean by bundling? It has a major impact also in the production and to produce a good quality garment. You see, bundling is nothing but we have to get different parts of the assembly of the garment, okay, that we call it as a garment bundle. Now there is another important aspect of bundling is there, that is called the job bundle, okay. So two aspects of bundling is there, one is the garment and there is the job. What do you mean by this? You can see that garment, okay, different garments, bundles and all these are shown in the figure. Now let us see in more detail what do you mean by this garment bundle. It is nothing but that components of different garment items are in one bundle. Because if we keep different parts or different components of a particular garment in different bundles, so difficult to locate them at the time of sewing operation. So that is the way this garment bundle, different components, for example a t-shirt, that are to be kept in the one bundle only. So it will be easier for the sewing machine operator to really look into it and then stitch the different components. Like an example has been given here, the t-shirts if we want to produce, so different components of this particular garments are there. So that must be there in one bundle. So that is called the garment bundle. Okay. Now if you see about the job bundle. Now job bundle is nothing but operations components bundle as one. Different operations are there. Okay, so those components are bundled. Now like example 30 sleeve components are there. So those kind of sleeves, okay, those sleeve components are bundled together. So this component of in one operations are bundled together. For only one operations, all the sleeves when it will be processed, so 30 sleeve components are bundled together. So that's why it is called operations components and it is bundled as one, because this is a one operations only will be carried out into that with the sleeve components. So that is called job bundle. So while doing this all areas, so we have to be very careful the bundling operations when you are doing in the garment, and we have to look into it from a quality point of view that all these areas are to be monitored perfectly and all the parameters needs to be maintained to achieve a better quality product. So that is the job bundle. Now let us see students that when you are talking about quality assurance in bundling, what are the different precautions or different important points to it. So if there is any garment component is missing in the bundle, what will be the consequence? Students, can you tell? It is basically a loss of time first of all, because you have to really identify that garment component, where it is there now. Okay. So if it is missed in the bundle, then it is a problem. So that's why a quality controller must check the bundle also, that whether all parts are there in that bundle or not. Now sometimes actually RFID tags are attached to a bundle also to identify, yes, this bundle is meant for this garment. Okay, so all components are there in that. So RFID tag must be there in that type of bundle. Now in quality assurance also comes that if there is wrong size or components mixed in the bundle, this is the second consequence. Once that component is not at all there in the bundle in earlier case, and here we are seeing the wrong size or components mixed in the bundle. This is also again production loss. You have to again go for the identification of that particular component. And what happens that if such kind of things are mixed in the bundle and if it is stitched, then what type of garment it will be produced? You just see. That's why the quality control at this stage is very, very important in the bundling operation. So in the image it is shown here the how precautions are taken care during the operations. Now we also talk about the different lot or different style of garment components if it is mixed. So this is the third case where different lot or different styles of components are mixed together. Okay. So that's also has to be controlled. Now what will be the consequence, students, if such kind of situation happens? Different lot or styles are mixed together. It will be a disaster again in stitching operation. Okay. If it is not identified, then different styles of the components will be mixed together and ultimately the production will be totally hampered until and unless we are segregating all these different components of the lot. So mixing of those kind of things are not at all permitted. So from quality control point of view, that's why bundling plays an important role. So different lot, different styles and all these things should not be mixed together in one bundle. So that bundle must be maintained correctly. Now in quality control operations also there is a process called ticketing. Now students, what do you mean by ticketing? Now ticketing is nothing but, this is the numbering. What is numbering? This is a number given to the garment component parts. Okay. But why it is given? It is given to avoid the errors during the production. Okay. Different component parts, if they are marked properly and numbered properly, then sequence will be there. Okay. One can understand, yes, this particular component is belonging to this particular garment. So errors during production will be minimized by ticketing method. So there are ticketing methods are used for identifying different garment component parts. Now ticketing also talks about that different numbers of styles and sizes. Ticketing will be given based on styles and sizes of the garment, so that not only the mixing but also identification of that particular lot will be very easy, or that particular size will be easy, or the style will be very easy. So that is called the ticketing operations, and that must be controlled correctly to get the uniformity in the material or the quality material. So when you are talking about the quality assurance in ticketing, so there wrongly entering the numbering to other garment components, that also created disaster. So if it is mixed, that different components or the different numbers, okay, and if it is wrongly entered, then also it is a problem. Okay. So stitching operation will be affected due to that, and you will not get a very good quality garment if there is a mixture or mix the different numbering in the garment, because you cannot really get the right component because of that wrong numbering. And the garment what will be produced, that also will be a very poor quality, because we have used the wrong ticketing. Okay, wrong component has come to you. So that is the usefulness of ticketing in the operation. And these are all operations like bundle ticketing, so they are playing also a major role while quality control of a garment in a industry. Now quality assurance in ticketing also take care of size of the garment component. And if those sizes like small size, medium size, large size, if they are mixed together, what will happen? Okay, so numbering will be wrong if that is mixed together. Okay, different numbering system, that will not work there if different size of the garment components are mixed there in the lot. So you have to be very careful while doing the ticketing operations. So similar size components should be there, and ticketing should be done accordingly. So quality control point of view, that's why these particular operations are very, very important, and we have to look into it to produce the good quality garment without affecting the productivity. Now students, after this spreading, then pattern making and cutting operations and subsequent bundling and ticketing operations, we have to come to the actual zone where the sewing operations, that is assembling of different product components, are done. So that is called sewing. And as you all know that when sewing is done, and different defects can come naturally. One of the major defects which really come there is the needle damage. So during the operations, the needles are getting damaged in sewing. And if that needle damage takes place, obviously there will be defects in the garment. So that's why we need to control that needle damage part in sewing operations. Next comes in the sewing operations as a part of the quality control, that is the stitches, different types of defective stitches which can come. One of such examples of defective stitches are the skipped stitches. So, some of the parts or some of the areas during the time of stitching, actually it is skipped, okay, due to certain reasons. So, due to machine problems or any other issues in the machines, skip stitches can be generated like as shown in the figure. So, those kind of control factors should be there. There must be some quality controller in the sewing machine to understand, yes, this type of operations, this defect is coming. So, we have to control such defects, which is not at all acceptable, the skipped stitches. Now, students, this is not all. As you know, there are huge varieties of such stitching defects are there. So, some of them actually I am going to cover here. So, one of such sewing defect also is called the broken stitches. So, as students, as the name suggests, the stitches are broken during time of the sewing operation. What happens into that if it really broken? Now, you can see that in the denim garment there is a broken stitch, okay. So, stitch is broken during the time of sewing operations, okay. So, this also comes as a defect in the sewing operations. We need to control. We cannot afford that broken stitches will be generated in the garment, okay. Now, in the sewing defects, when you are talking, one of the very important area which really hampers the appearance of the garment is the seam puckering. Now, students, what do you mean by seam puckering? Seam puckering is nothing but, as shown in the figure, that little bit of tension variation, looking little wavy appearance in the garment. So, garment is not smooth, okay, some wavy structure, wavy appearance. So, such kind of occurrence when it is there in the garment, we call it as a seam puckering. Now, seam puckering can really happen due to various reasons, okay. So, if there is a mismatch between the thread what has been used or the fabric what has been used, okay. So, wrong thread has been used, because of that, then stitching is not proper. So, all these areas are there by which seam puckering can occur, and we have to control of producing such kind of puckering effect of seam in the garment. So, that is the reason, students, that quality control is very much required at this stage of sewing. Now, sewing defects also include that fit damage. Sometimes in the machine there is a fit damage, fit dog damage is there. So, a lot of variations are there because of tensions and other things, and you can get a lot of sewing defects because of the fit damage. Then obviously, when the operation is on, sewing operation is on, there may be the thread breaks, okay. So, if thread breaks happens, that many of the situation, as shown in the figure, it may happen. So, thread breaks at a particular point, then in that condition, if machine runs, what will be the consequence of it? So, we have to control that in the garment. Then in the sewing defect, there is another important defect which really hampers the appearance or the aesthetic of the product, is the green, seam greening. Now, when the seam greening occurs? Now, seam greening occurs when there is again the stitching thread what has been used, if it is not compatible, if it extends quite a lot, like a tension has been given at the stitching point. So, in that time there will be some separation of the yarn, some looking like a hole is generated into that in particular area, the yarn displacement takes place, and it is not visually correct also to get such kind of greening in the seam. So, it is not only the properties or the appearance or the aesthetics, but also the mechanical properties of that garment will be affected. And seam slippage is also one of the result of this seam greening. So, we have to be very careful that compatibility of the seam with that particular fabric, then proper use of the sewing thread, proper tension in the sewing machine, okay, at different areas, and thread tension. All these things played an important role to control the seam greening operation. Now, sewing defects also contained some pleated seams, okay, so that also can come as a sewing defect. Now, when you are talking about the sewing, there must be some difference in the way the stitching happens. So, some area may be little denser, some area may be little looser, such kind of situation also may come. So, that we call it as a stitch density. So, wrong stitch density in a garment also is a big problem in the sewing operation, and we must control it. Wrong stitch density means at a particular area looking like the more threads are there. Now, in stitching operations, when you are doing in sewing, that uneven stitch density may also occur, okay. Some area density is correct, some area density is not correct. So, there will be some visual impact in it, the stitch density, and which is not acceptable. So, there are various faults are there in such a way in the sewing operation, and we must control it during the quality assurance. Now, there are also in the as a sewing defect, we can see that improperly formed stitches, okay. Like in the figure, you can see that there are some stitches have been formed, but not in a correct straight line way, deviated from the straight line. So, improperly formed stitches can also be formed in the sewing operation, and which must be controlled to get a quality product from sewing. Now, there are also defects that during the time of sewing operations, there are some machine oil which may drip into the garment. That also is not desirable. Any kind of oil spots or stains can really deteriorate the appearance of the garment. So, there should not be any oil spot or stain in the stitching area during the time of sewing. Now, when you are talking about the sewing defects, we can also see that we may get the incorrect or uneven width actually as a sewing defect, and it also contains the runoffs, okay, like as shown in the figure, a defect which normally happens in the sewing machine, and also we can get little bit of twisted seam, okay. So, when there is a twisted seam as a sewing defect, it may come, it may lead to spirality or side seam twisting, and sometimes it is also called as torque in the material. So, such kind of defect is not desirable at all, the twisted seam or seam twisting. So, they must be controlled. While generation of such kind of defect, one must control that such side seam twisting or twisted seam should not happen in the fabric. Now, there are occasions by which in the types of sewing when you are doing, that checks or stripes are not matched properly as shown in the figure. The lines are not properly matched while doing the stitching. So, that also comes as a sewing defect. Now, students, in this sewing defect when you are talking, there are also cases of mismatched seam. Seams are not matching actually one area to another area as shown in the particular figure. So, mismatched seam can also be generated as a sewing defect in a particular garment lot or in a particular production. Now, sewing defects when you are talking, there are also some of the parts that front side it is okay, but a reverse part of the garment if you examine. So, there are some sewing defects are there which is also not desirable. So, that is the reverse part of the garment which takes care of such kind of thing, and where the sewing defects should not be there at all. Now, very important part in sewing is that wrong seam or stitch should not be used. So, particular garment, particular end use, proper stitch should be used, proper seam must be created. Okay. So wrong seam or stitch type should not be encouraged or should not be used at all. There is also the possibility that wrong shade of the thread used. Particular garment you have to stitch and you are using a different kind of shaded thread which is not advisable, and this comes as a defect in the sewing operation and not desirable at all. So wrong shade of thread used also is a defect and must be controlled. What type of garment color is there, so we have to choose the thread accordingly, and wrong selection of the shade is not at all desirable and will be treated as a sewing defect. Let us see, students, that after this different parts or different areas what we have discussed now, that what do we mean by assembly defects and what are the things from quality assurance point of view must be controlled. Now here in the assembling, the first point comes the finished components. Okay, the finished components must be correct first of all. Okay, then only assembling is possible correctly. So finished part of the components in a garment, that is important here. Now assembly defects also come due to different parts, different components, enclosures, then features which are not used there or omitted, which was a part of the garment but has been omitted. Parts, components, closures and features. So then the assembly defect may come due to that. Now it also talks about the components or features wrongly positioned. Suppose some component like a zipper is there or some button is there. Okay, so they are not correctly stitched in the right area. So it is wrongly positioned. Okay, components or features are wrongly positioned in the assembly. So that's why it is called also the assembly defect as shown in the figure. Now assembly defects, when you are talking, we also talk about the use of the interlining. Now interlining should be correctly positioned in the garment. Where it is required, there only the interlining must be there, like in this particular figure. Now again the garment parts, the different areas, okay, like a different parts of the garment like a pleating, twisting, cockling, okay, if it shows bubbles and fullness, it is also not acceptable. So different parts of the garment, that's why are very important, that how you are maintaining the quality control, and it should not produce like in the figure some sort of fullness or bubbles. Okay, and it will be termed as assembly defects in the garment if it falls into that. Now very important part, students, about this particular quality assurance when you are talking of garment is the workmanship standards in general. Now what do you mean, the students, by this workmanship standard? You see, the workmanship standards are nothing but that how the stitching has been done, how effectively this stitching has been done. Okay, so that is taken care of by this workmanship standard. Okay, so proper way the stitching must be done, proper way the particular different parts of the garment must be fixed. They must be stitched securely to the garment. Okay, like a button, it must be very secured to the garment. Now each and every thread must be cut from the garment, the finished garment when I am talking. So that is the area where the workmanship starts coming. So one of the important area in workmanship is the open seams, then skip stitches, then cracked stitches, stitches per inch. So these are all very important terminologies associated of making a garment, and we call it as workmanship of the garment. And that also includes the various kind of seams, like an uneven seam also is included in the workmanship. So seam defects will be there in the garment, okay, and if it is crossing a particular limit kind of thing, then we must say that the workmanship of this particular garment is not good. Some inevitable stitching defect may come, but if it comes in continuously, then it is a problem for that garment industry. Okay, so that means the workmanship of a particular product is under doubt, and workmanship can be hampered due to open seams, skip stitches, crack stitches, okay, then wrong stitches per inch, okay, uneven seams, etc. So those must be controlled, the workmanship standards in general. Then we also talked about the workmanship standards in apparel when we were talking about different crooked, puckered, curled or pleated seams. Okay, we have to avoid such kind of seam generation in the garment. And you can see in the figure that if there is a too loose a thread, how will be the appearance, too tight, how it is the appearance. So all these things are just right. What is the right seam, that you can see from the figure. Now workmanship standards also talks here about the needle and the feed cuts. Okay, so if that also happens, so workmanship will be affected in the garment. Now unclipped threads and long ends, so those areas also is a cause of concern in the garment quality. So we must look into it and maintain correctly the quality standards. Unclipped threads and long ends, that is also not desirable in a good workmanship satisfied garment. Now the raw edges and untrimmed portions which are there in the thread, that also comes under the workmanship. So when a particular quality controller will visit in a particular factory and see that in the garment what they are producing and inspect them, so if he finds that there is raw edge, untrimmed edges are there in the garment, so then he must say that workmanship of that particular garment is not good. So that proper workmanship standard must be maintained for the garment as shown in the figure. Now workmanship standards, when you are talking in the apparel, it talks about different labels also. Okay, so it is not only the labels, snaps what you are using, different fasteners what you are using, buttons, electives. So this list actually is applicable, okay, when we are talking about workmanship standards in general. Now what do you mean by that, students? So in the figure you can see some sort of damaged buttons are there, some areas are not properly steamed. So lot of defects are there in the material, and defects can happen not only in the button, it can happen with the zippers, some elastic band if it is used there, some velcro tape it is used, okay, lot of snaps, attachment what is used there, labels if it is not correct label. So we will take about that, yes, the garment workmanship standard is not good. Now interestingly, this workmanship standard also comes in the measurement part, when you are doing the measurement of a garment. Okay, proper measurement must be there in the garment, and it must satisfy the requirement of the buyer. So that's why in the fabric inspection measurement plays an important role, and ultimately it talks about the workmanship standard in the garment. Now let us see, students, one of the examples by which a particular woven shirt is getting inspected, and what are the different steps involved in a woven shirt while a particular quality controller or quality assurance person will inspect that particular area. So step by step different inspection process of the chart if we see. So number one is that step is that product presentation or the packing. Then second step will be the fabric defects, identification of the fabric defects at the front of the garment, front portions of the garment. Now next comes the seams and stitching, and fourth step is that closure of buttons, trims, etc. So this is the sequence, students, the sequence of operation in the chart inspection. So we talk about product presentation first or packing. We talk about the fabric defects at the front area, seams and stitching, closures, buttons and the trims. So these are to be inspected in the sequence. Then comes the fabric defects at the back. When you are talking about the front, so there must be some fabric defects which are occurring at the back also. So this is the way the fabric, different kind of fabric defects are identified in the garment. So front and back position both are important, that's why for a garment. Now students, in this step by step chart inspection, there is also one important part is the collar of a garment. Okay, collar, how we will inspect the collar. Okay, collar stand. Okay, so those things are to be inspected. And then comes the sleeves and the cuffs. Okay, balance, asymmetrical, matching, all these things are measured here in the chart inspection. Then inside garment fully turned, that is also one of the steps for chart inspection. So inside garment must be turned. So chart inspection can be done in this way. Now product presentation or packing, when you are talking, yes, there are ways by doing this. So major points of inspection goes around that. And presentation of pressing and folding, that also is important in product presentation. How you are doing this folding and pressing. So that area is important. Then second important area in production preparation of and the packing is the chart should be packed in a correct polybag size. Size of the polybag should not be too high or too low kind of thing, too small. So correct polybag size must be maintained in the particular packing, and that must be inspected correctly. So in the figure it is shown that different polybags are getting used. Now next operation or next particular important point in product presentation, that is the check presentation of collar, butterfly and band, what has been used there. So these are the different steps by which the product presentation or packing can be done. So this particular presentation talks about collar, butterfly or band, etc. Then comes the collar spread. How is the collar spread looking like? So that part has to be inspected correctly. Then it talks about the packaging method and the material. This also plays an important role in the inspection. So packaging method and the material is also playing a vital role in it. Now next process or next important points of inspection, if we talk about that, what are the major areas or major points of inspection that comes to our mind or that must be maintained in a particular quality assurance department, they should do it. So tickets, hang tags or special catalog packing when you are talking. So those things must be inspected properly, whether right ticket has been mentioned there, right hang tag depending upon the end use of the garment is there, or any kind of special packing required for that particular product. So that's why different tickets, hang tags are shown here in this particular image, okay, which must be attached to the garment. Those kind of tags, tickets or special catalog, and it depicts certain things, that it tells about the important features of the garment Okay. So those are the major points, one of the major points of inspection. And then when we are talking about the inspection of the front area, fabric defects, what are the things we should see? Number one, students, is the position of the button. Which area button is actually positioned. Then we have to see the puckering at placket area. Uneven closure at the front placket. These are the things important when we really inspect a particular garment. Okay. Improper pocket positioning is also one of the defect. Presentation of the pocket, that also plays an important role, how the pockets are looking like in the garment. So those are the things are very important in while you are doing the quality control of a garment. Okay. So fabric defects, that's why plays an important role at the front and the back area. And apart from that, the width of pocket facing also important. If there is an incorrect collar stand, that also must be checked properly. Now too small or too large, okay, is not acceptable into this. And the fabric defect, okay, that must be checked also in this, and also both for the body and for the sleeves, that is getting checked. Now students, we have seen that different steps involved in the shirt manufacturing or the inspection of a shirt, and also we have seen different aspects of the garment inspection. Now let us see, students, the seams and stitching. What are the importance of it in the producing a good quality garment? So any eased seam at neckline, okay, any broken stitches at collar and fall and the stand. So those things are not at all permitted. First of all, eased seam at the neckline area and broken stitches at the collar, fall and stand, that is not permitted from the point of view of producing a good quality garment. So that is about seams and stitching. Now it also talks about open seam at shoulder seam, open seam at the armhole, and open seam at the side seam and under arm seam. So those are also needs to be checked properly, then only we can produce a good quality garment. Now this is not all, students, there are a lot of accessories are used in the garment. So closures, buttons and trims, there also requirement is there. If it is not sewn correctly, okay, so and securely, so it may come out during the use, so that will hamper the real quality of the garment. So consumers will be very unhappy during that time. Then pull off is also another important part. Defective buttonholes, okay, that also plays an important role in quality control as shown in the figure. So closer buttons and trims, if you want to really inspect from the quality assurance point of view, we have to see the security, how it is maintained there, it is sewn correctly or not, whether there is a pull off, whether the buttonhole is correct or not. Those are the things actually we need to check for this. Then closer buttons and trims, when you are talking, then we should also talk about the buttonhole. It is poorly cut open or not, okay, defective buttons are there or not. So all these things together we have to consider the particular garment. Now fabric defects at the front, we have talked. Fabric defects at the back also plays an important role, as we have seen. Now open seam at the yoke is important. Puckering or loose stitching at the back neck is important there, as is shown in the figure. Now when we are talking about the fabric defects at the back, the open seam at the back neck is also important, and collar fall, okay, that which can cover the collar stand, that important area is there. Then yoke width uneven left to right, this also comes under the defect at the back area. So seeing all these things together, if you see that there is another important part what we want to cover, that is the collar. So excessive tightness or fullness of the collar is not desirable. So any wavy or uneven top stitching is not permitted into the collar area. Broken stitches or skipped stitches, that is also not permitted into these areas. So that's why collar also plays an important role, students, that how the collar should be, what type of stitching has to be done in this particular collars. Okay, broken stitches, skip stitches should not be there at all in the collar area, because it will hamper the appearance of the product. Now boarding on the outside collar, that is also plays an important role. Uneven edge stitching at the collar stand also one must take care of. Now students, after this kind of informations we have to really see about the collar. The damage at collar point or hole at that area is also important. Now stitch count more or less than the specified tolerance, if it is there, then such kind of problems may come in the garment. So at the collar point. Now when you come into the collar stand, broken stitches are not permitted at the collar stand, and stitch count more or less than the specified tolerance, it should be maintained. So that part of material, that is the broken stitch, how it looks like, that is shown here in the figure. Now collar stand also talks about excessive tightness and fullness of the cover stand. So collar stand must be maintaining that it should not be too tight or too full, and collar stand should lay smooth and flat. So these are the important photographs of collar stands. And one must also see the sleeves and cuffs part. Uneven sleeve length is not acceptable. Any twisted sleeve is not acceptable. Now wrong size of sleeve, okay, into the body, so that is also not acceptable in the garment. Now sleeve and cuffs, when you are talking, too light or too loose stitching at underarm seam is not permitted. Any uneven length or twisting at the sleeve pocket is to be controlled correctly. And the mistacking at the sleeve pocket sometimes happens. Open seam at the cuff area, it happens. Misplacement or misalignment of the buttons and buttonhole at the cuff area, that may also happen. Then mistacking or cuff while sewing to sleeve, that is also important. Then wrong sleeve pocket size is also another area one must look into. Wrong sleeve pocket size. Now there are balance, asymmetrical and matching also in the collar point, that must be maintained here. Asymmetrical collar point, shoulder seam adjoining to collar, and does it cause collar distortion, that we have to see. Variation in collar stands are also there. So we must check all these things together while really you are producing a good quality garment. Now when you are talking about balance, asymmetrical, matching, mistacking or collar stand also is important, and asymmetrical collar we have to check correctly. Then turn the garment inside out, and then you can inspect the skip stitches in overlocking, any overlocking defect, okay, any untrimmed area. All these things are to be checked when we turn the garment inside out. We also see that any kind of button positioning misplacement or skip stitches at the placket area, or any raw edges are there or not in the garment inside out conditions. And there are defects we have already seen in the sewability, the seam strength, seam puckering, seam slippage, needle cutting and the seam appearance. So these are the important points, and which is also judged in the garment stage by using some AATCC test method. Now after this, the final part is talking about the pressing and finishing, and there are some of the areas the quality controller must look into: the burned or scorched garment, water spot or stains should not happen, the broken zippers and buttons should not be there, and crease, okay, if not correctly formed. So that part also we have to see. Shrinkage due to heat and moisture, whether it is happening. So pressing also plays an important role, and we have to observe all these points correctly in the garment. So students, that's all about this particular lesson, where we have talked about different areas from spreading to finishing, and what are the points are required for quality control, starting from the spreading, pattern making, then we talked about the cutting operations, then we talked about the sewing operations and also the finishing operations, and also we have seen that different areas of the garment, okay, how the quality control can be done both at the front and the back side, and also we have seen the step by step procedure for one woven shirt inspection. So thank you very much students. We will come with a new lesson in the next chapter. Thank you.